Yes, welcome into Sportsbit Betting Insight today, Monday, June 6th. Deep dive will be the Arizona Cardinals. We start with the NFC West today and our NFL team previews. Play of the day, we try to make it 9 out of 11 and 2 baseball games to break down and big game breakdown. Bad beats, bad bets. We have to start with Game 2 NBA Finals. My God. I was on the Cavs. I'm embarrassed. I bought into LeBron has won 9 straight Game 2s after they lost the first game of a series. Scott Foster, Tony Brothers were on the game. Didn't matter. And the Warriors could have won that by 40 plus if they didn't have the silly turnovers. They embarrassed Cleveland again.
Yeah, they sure did. And now it's the 9th game in a row, Pauly, that the Cavs have failed to reach 100 against the Warriors. You feel stupid, you were the Cavs. I feel stupid. I went right back with the over. 16 quotes out of Cleveland. We're going to push the pace. Yeah, we're going to push the pace. Yeah, they're going to push it right up their ass. Yeah. What do we call it? This is what we should call it. Golden State is clearly the better team than the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs, other than LeBron, have 14 assists versus 21 turnovers in the series. They have no clue who they are. Meanwhile, you look at Draymond Green. Right now, 2 games in, he's MVP. 28 points. Golden State now plus 49 in the 64 minutes with Andre Iguodala on the court in the playoffs. Curry and Thompson, they haven't lit it up. They both hit 3-pointers in Game 2, but it's not like it's been the Curry and Thompson show, and yet still 2 blowouts from the Cavs.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. Nothing out of the MVP so far in this series. If we didn't know it before Game 2, it's official now. The Eastern Conference was absolute dog shit, and maybe a blessing in disguise. Kevin Love leaves with probably a concussion. I wouldn't play him in Game 3. They just Love and Kyrie can't guard anybody, and maybe we'll see. I don't know what Lou can do. I don't know what he can do. You're right. They're a better team. They've now beat them 7 in a row. 6 of them were blowouts.
And then you look at the runs. Look at this tweet from ESPN. Mm-hmm. The Warriors' second half runs with Steph Curry. This isn't with Curry on the court. This is with Curry off the court.
Correct.
Game 1, a 19-8 run. Game 2, a 25-15 run. Extended, dominant runs without their MVP. That's a problem. Now, LeBron, he had 9 assists in Game 2. The rest of the team only had 21 main baskets. So, he's doing everything just like last year in the finals. I don't put any of this on LeBron James, but boy, you remember his last tenure in Cleveland was LeBron and the 11 Dwarfs. Who was the second best player on the last finals team? Was that Antoine Jameson? Yeah. In his earlier tenure with the Cavs? The same sort of thing is happening this time around. Bad news for Cleveland.
If they get swept, it's going to be ugly in Cleveland. They already fired Blatt. They brought in Lou. LeBron wanted Lou. You could expect Love, maybe both Love and Kyrie gone if they get swept or lose in 5, because they'll never, got to be a fall guy. Someone's got to take the blame. They'll never
Kyrie's
admit that the Warriors were the better team.
Kyrie's not going anywhere.
Who?
Kyrie Irving is not going anywhere.
Oh, they'll ship him out if they get swept.
Not a chance.
Yes, absolutely. Can't defend anybody. Ball stopper. I think he'll be out of there. All right, some more bad bets. How about the Cubs? For the first time since July 25th, Arrieta gets beat. And we told you last week on Sportsbit, fatigue setting in. He threw a lot of pitches, had a lot of strikeouts, but couldn't go deep in this one. And the Diamondbacks and the bookies are thankful for this result.
Oh, yeah. Well, think about it. On Friday and on Saturday, the Cubs covered the run line in the 8th inning in their final at-bat. Disaster for books.
Yeah.
Both nights. And then, of course, Arrieta lost on Sunday, and the books made most of it, if not all of it, back. But, you talked about the pitch counts for Arrieta. And, again, this is a guy that hasn't thrown this type of a workload like he has over the last year and a half at any previous point in his career. All of a sudden, last year, 18 pitches per inning. Twice, all season, he went over 18 pitches per inning. Now, this season, in his last 8 starts, he's gone over 18 pitches per inning 4 different times. There are cracks in the armor, even though, hey, it doesn't like he got bombed.
Yeah, right. Right.
But the prices that you're being asked to lay with Arrieta at this stage, and the fact that there are issues with him right now. He's not a guy I'm in any rush to get to the window to support.
Cubs go 8-2 on that homestand. They've opened up a huge lead in the division. And let's talk about what happened Saturday. Here in Vegas, at 3 different books, the Dodgers closed $5 or higher. At CG Technology, they were minus 525 with Kershaw, And Chris Andrews, who runs the South Point now with Jimmy Vaccaro, SBR contributor, tweeted, I was a sports book writer in 1979 at the Dust. And I remember Nolan Ryan closed $5 against the A's. Couldn't buy a ticket on the A's, and Nolan Ryan lost. But this is out of sight. And the books took a beating. 5:25 they closed, Teddy. Has to be a record. Dodgers win 4-0 and cover the run line with some help in the 8th inning.
Well, that's just it. They got it at the end. You know, of course, right. 1-0 game into the 8th, and that makes things very, very interesting. But, you know, here's the deal with a $5 favorite in baseball. I've been in Vegas since 1998. Mm-hmm. It's the first time I've seen one. It stood out like a sore thumb. When I see a $5 favorite, guess what? I don't want the favorite, and I don't want the underdog. You know, it's a pass. Yeah. You know, if you laid it, congratulations, you cashed a winner. Yeah. If you took the big plus price on Atlanta, nobody took the big plus price on Atlanta. Let's be realistic. Yeah. Tough. But the bottom line is, you know, when the markets get, and the markets are the great equalizer. You know, when the markets get to a point where they're saying Kershaw's minus $5, I'm not interested. Yeah, a little bit of a sweat, too. He only went 6 innings. He didn't have 96 pitches. That Dodger bullpen got involved, which is always scary. Yeah, we might disagree on this one. I think the Mets were a bad bet because, again, it was Fernandez at home. He throws 7 scoreless. I know Harvey threw a gem and got beat. This Fernandez now 23-1 career at home. Yeah, but, you know, I can't call this a bad bet. You know, the Mets held Miami to a single run and lost the game. Harvey threw an absolute gem. You know, it didn't matter. Obviously, Jose Fernandez has some remarkable numbers at home. And they're not necessarily numbers that I'm looking to stand in front of. But, you know, when the team scores 1 run and they win, I'm not calling that a bad bet. You know, not if you took the Mets, even though now that Jose Fernandez, as you mentioned, 23-1 pitching in Miami. One bad beat. The Reds led 5-0 at home against the Nationals. They scored 9 runs. They couldn't win the game. Well, come on. A sports bit. We're not allowed to call any Reds losses bad beat. As you know, if you've been watching sports bit regularly, you already know what happened. Since he gets a 5-0 lead, they're not going to hold it. Since he scores 9, they're not going to hold it. Moscott couldn't hold the lead. The pen behind him got lit up. And all you got to do is look at that picture of Brian Price, whose days, and it's not his fault, but you can already see, they're right in the wall. His days in Cincinnati are numbered. Pauly and Teddy, Sportsman up next, big game breakdown. And we'll get to the deep dive back to the NFL and the play of the day. We've been red hot. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much more.
All right, time for a big game breakdown. As always, live odds. Go to sportsbookreview.com. Mets and the Pirates. It's Mats against Nice. Mets $1.15 on the road, 8 the total, although a lot of books are showing 7.5. While the Mets should be worried, Teddy, even with Harvey turning it around, Cespedes, Lagares, both out with injuries on Sunday, both questionable today. You got Duda and Wright on the DL. Tough. They have one of the worst lineups in baseball. Yeah, they do. It means that the Mets really have to pitch great to win. Mm-hmm. You know, they held Miami to 1 run on Sunday. That wasn't enough. You know, now it falls on Steven Matz to carry the load. But, of course, Matz has the tools. And I want to set up a running theme for today's show because we really have to be careful about looking at the aggregate numbers at this stage of the season. You can downgrade a pitcher too much off of one game. We'll be talking about the same thing with James Paxton in a couple of minutes, but look at Matz, all right? The numbers look great, 7-1, 2.60. But let's not forget, he got roughed up for 7 runs in an inning and a half, an inning and 2/3 against Miami in the season opener. So, yeah, he's 7-1, 2.60 for the season. Since that one outing, he's 7-0 with a 1.51. 4 of his last 8 starts, the guy didn't allow a single run. Man. He has been an absolute ace for the New York Mets, and he's been an undervalued commodity ever since that one bad start against Miami. How often do you see that happen? Where someone you respect gives up on a pitcher because he has maybe a bad outing or two? Well, it's not so much people are going to give up on a pitcher. What they're going to react to is the pitcher's stats. And when you have one bad outing that has an outsized influence on the entire season's worth of stats, you know, it's certainly going to be an issue. And you see that happen? It happens all the time. This is a guy, you know, we're in June now. Matt's ERA full season is a run higher than it would be if we discount that start. So it's not like it's a minor situation. It happens all the time in MLB. So Nice has opened up 5-2 with the Pirates, but an ERA of 4.36 and a FIP of 5.26 might tell a more true tale. But Teddy's problem's been keeping the ball in the park.
Yeah, and that really is the one weakness of Jonathan Nice, the guy who pitched 177 starts for the Mets. Now he's going against the Mets for the first time. Should be, fun to watch in that regard. But look at the home run to fly ball rate the last 4 years. Just up, up, up. 2003, 8.2. 2015, it's up to 14.3. So far this season, 21% of his fly balls have gone out of the park. That ranks number 101 out of 103 qualifying pitchers. That being said, the Mets just don't have a lot of bats that can go yard right now.
Game number 2, Indians, Mariners. Bauer against Paxton. $1.15, $1.14 for the Mariners, 8.5 the total. And 2 good handicapping themes here. Teddy, is there such a thing as a letdown in baseball? Look at the weekend the Indians just had at home.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, we talk about the concept of letdowns. And you see it in the NBA sometimes. You see it in the NFL sometimes. In baseball, not so much. But this may be the exception to that rule. Usually not so much. But the Indians really wanted it against Kansas City. And they went out and got it. The sweep didn't just move them to first place. It also dealt their most important rival 4 losses. So that was a huge series for the Indians. Now they're going out on the highway. Of course, the biggest impact player for a team in every game is their starting pitcher, Pauly. And for Trevor Bauer, there's no reason to let down for him, is there?
No, he's becoming one of the easiest guys around to power rate, consistency, 3 seasons as the Cleveland starter. You look at this unbelievable graphic here. 2014, 15, and 16. The ERA, the FIP, the strikeouts per 9 innings, and the walks per 9 innings. You can see not much variance. He is who he is. Handicapping issue number 2. How much do you penalize a starter for a bad outing? And Matt, that was rough what happened to Paxton last time out. Explain, Teddy.
Yeah, it sure was. But let me just go back to Trevor Bauer for one second, because it's worth noting that we talk about a letdown. Cleveland as a team may have a letdown. There's nothing here for Bauer. He played no part in the Kansas City series. And in fact, he spent most of his weekend in Seattle, as major league pitchers do, flying ahead for their next start. That being said, handicap issue number 2. How much do you penalize the starter? We talked about this a moment ago with Matz. Now we're going to talk about it with Paxton. Look, he made an unscheduled start. He got called up from AAA when King Felix went on the DL. When you looked at the betting board in the morning, it was King Felix. The decision wasn't made until later in the day to put King Felix on the DL. And guess what? He threw 103 pitches in 3.2 innings at San Diego. He got rocked. He gave up 8 runs. Only 3 are listed as earned. But, of course, it was his error that set up the other 5. So the question that we have to ask, does this guy get the full penalty for a bad outing, or maybe reduce it a little bit because he may not have been fully ready? Let's not forget, 13 mostly effective starts last year, 13 mostly effective starts in 2014, and a 2.67 career ERA at Safeco Field in 14 starts. Worth noting, Pauly, the Mariners had the exact opposite team weekend of Cleveland. They got swept to fall out of first place.
Yes, excellent point. Yeah, good point there. Remember, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Up next, we continue with our NFL team previews. This week, it's the NFC West. We'll start with the Arizona Cardinals, and we try to make it 9 out of 11 with the play of the day on SportsBit Betting Insight today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy. Here we go. Arizona Cardinals, over under 9.5, 10 at some books. Heavy juice to the over, grades at 10. 13-3 last year, straight up. 9-7 ATS, 9-7 to the over, plus 9 in turnovers. That was 4th in the NFL. We love Bruce Arians, Teddy. Tell us about the schedule.
Yeah, let me start real quick with the mainstream numbers, because they finished with the number 1 overall ranked offense and the number 5 overall ranked defense. They won 13 games. And from the offseason moves that we'll talk about in a minute, they got better. That being said, let's talk about the schedule. Now, last year's schedule on the easy side, when you look at the aggregate numbers. The way I do it, at the end of the season, I go back and I grade every single team's opponent on the week that team, based on my power rating numbers, the week the game was played. It's a time-consuming process, but it gives me a real good assessment of what teams overachieved based on schedule and what teams overachieved based on they were really good. And guess what? When I did that for the Arizona Cardinals, the mainstream numbers show their schedule was a little bit easier than average. My numbers show that they faced the easiest schedule in the NFL in 2015. And I didn't expect to see it. It really shocked me. But, you do it the lazy way. You graded out last year's numbers. They're going to grade out slightly below average, but not anywhere near the bottom. Yet my numbers show that the Cardinals were facing the right teams at the right time last year. And that has as much to do with their 13-3 record as any other factor.
Excellent. Okay, that was last year. How about this year?
Well, yeah, I mean, the schedule this year, again, you want to look at the advanced metric numbers. You want to use the type of math that the wise guys are using. So let me start with this, the very simple formula. You talk about Arizona at 9.5/10 wins. It's the same bet. Okay, 9.5 wins over -150 is the same thing as 10 at even money. Now, when I'm making a season win bet, I always want to lay the juice so I get that extra half a win. But from a mathematical standpoint, win total's worth, 50 cents of juice equates to a half a win, and that's how you can figure it out. So Arizona's this year, again, a slightly easier opponents than average. The NFC West faces the AFC East. That's the Jets, Dolphins, Pats, and Bills. Moderate.
Yeah.
The NFC South, Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa, weaker than average. The two extra games at Minnesota and Washington, no pushovers there, but overall, it is a slightly easier than average schedule, not a very easy, not a very tough.
Now, let's kick this around. This should be good. Carson Palmer, QBR of 82 last year. QB rating of 104.6, 8.7 yards per attempt, 35 touchdowns, all career highs. 36 years old. Played all 16 games last year. Only one way to go off those numbers, Teddy. And you wonder, at that age and how this season ended, if the guys in the locker room, you want to do and say the right thing. He was awful in the playoffs. He was horrendous in the NFC Championship game, and they should have lost to Green Bay at home. He almost threw five interceptions that game. He was so bad. Arizona lucky they got the win in overtime. So I think those numbers go down, and I'm really worried about Carson Palmer here that this could be it.
Well, let's start with the locker room. From all indications, Palmer's bad performance in the postseason did nothing to that locker room. Remember how bad the quarterback situation here was before Carson Palmer. One, when Carson Palmer got hurt in 2014, and then before he got here.
Yep.
Larry Fitzgerald was talking about it. He's saying, hey, I'm going to retire when Palmer goes. So I'm certainly not going to say that he's lost that locker room by any stretch of the imagination. That being said, when you have a 36-year-old quarterback coming off career highs in everything, and I mean, the QBR was off the charts compared to his previous career highs. The 104.6 QB rating, much higher. I think there was 1 year that he was comparable to that. Everything else was lower. The 8.7 yards per attempt, way higher than his career average. All this stuff. There's only one way to go. You're right. He can only go down. Larry Fitzgerald set a career high in catches last year in his 12th season in the NFL. That can only go down. So I'm with you conceptually in that Arizona, and Palmer in particular, it's going to be hard to match what they did last year.
36 years old, one playoff win, I believe. That's staggering. Additions. Let's look at what they did in the offseason. Big one here. They got Chandler Jones from the Patriots. Instant pass rush, 25 years old, coming off a 12-sack season. They got Branch and Mathis to cheap deals. And this could be a steal. I mean, there was talk this guy was going to go number one in the draft. They get Kemdichi, who falls all the way down to them. He's going to have an immediate impact. The kid out of Ole Miss could have an immediate impact.
Sure. I mean, they projected him right in the starting lineup. And, of course, we talk about the areas where they're improving. Boom. You got a pass rush with Jones. You got a pass rush with Kemdichi. You shore up the offensive line with Mathis. These are the type of moves that I generally like to see in the offseason. And when it comes to losses, there weren't a whole lot of them for Arizona. This team on paper looks really good. And, of course, the markets are reacting to that. There is one thing I do want to talk about that I neglected to mention about schedule just a moment ago.
Sure.
They only play 2 home games the last 7 weeks of the season. They have 3 10 a.m. Eastern time, or Pacific time, I should say, early start road games during that span, plus one more at Buffalo in week 3. And guess what? The national media is interested in Arizona this year. They get a Sunday night football game, week 1 versus the Pats, and a Monday night football game as well. But that tail end of the schedule, they only get those 2 home games and have all those East Coast times. That worries me about Arizona. The fact that their schedule looked tougher than it actually was last year makes me think that as a commodity, this team is a little bit overvalued, even though, Paul, a lot of areas they look really good. I do have my concerns about this team. I will not be betting Arizona over the total.
Top 3, top 5 coaching Arians? Remember, when Palmer got hurt, they had the best record in the league a couple years ago.
Sure.
Top 3?
I don't know. I really have to think about that, Paul. I like Arians as an offensive mind. No question about it. I like him as a leader. Top 3, top 5. He's a good coach. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. Loser Friday. These Yankee totals, Jesus.
Yeah, I promise. No more Yankees under.
Yeah, that's right. But still, we're 8-2 in our last 10. Let's keep it going. Money time. Play of the day. Where are we going, Teddy?
Well, we talked about the situation with Cleveland and Seattle. The Mariners feeling bad about themselves after falling out of first place. Cleveland fat and happy after getting into first place. Let's expect a little turnaround here. We're going to take a look at 9-18. Game number 9-18. The Seattle Mariners minus 114. Here's a pick of Robinson Cano already. At 290, 350, 576 slash line, 16 home runs, 41 ribbies. Let's see him get some damage done against Bauer and the tri-bullpen behind him. Let's take Seattle as the play of the day. It's all Mariners on Monday night.
All right, beautiful, fast-paced show. We're back Tuesday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.